you've done some work on Nietzsche and the pious side of Nietzsche.
Yeah, years ago.
Years ago.
I've forgotten that to tell you, but go on.
Would you be able to explain how you can see Nietzsche in a pious way?
In a pious way?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that is quite interesting. So Nietzsche came from a very long line of clergy. His dad was one, his grandfathers, and going back there was loads of them. His dad died when he was quite young, and he was brought up by his mum and sisters in a very sort of pious. Nietzsche won the university preaching prize. And then all of that ended. I mean, when he sort of became an atheist and a campaigning atheist, the really interesting thing about his atheism was that there was a sort of piety about it. There was a sort of the world depends on this. Almost your salvation depends on this. I mean, obviously in a secular way, but the question of God became a question of sort of real importance to him. And in fact, for me, that was one of the things that was really instrumental in my conversion to Christianity. So I went to university, a fairly straightforward atheist, and Nietzsche and others, Kierkegaard and a few others, but they raised the question of God in such a way that I thought I had to give it an answer. It was suddenly, I suddenly realised why the question was important. Whereas before, I didn't even think the question was important. That sort of atheist. That's the real atheism, by the way. Indifference is that's the real atheism. The Dawkins type of atheism, that's fine. That's a tiny flip away from Christianity. But indifference, that's the thing that Christians should be most afraid of. And Nietzsche was absolutely not indifferent. He raised the question of God in such a way that I knew something really serious depended upon how I answered it. So that was the beginnings of my sort of struggle with Christianity. And for years, people used to say about me, "Oh, Giles has got this weird hobby. Giles has got this weird hobby. He's like, he's interested in religion, and he reads all that stuff on the side." And I did, and it was for a long time it was a sort of quite an academic. Not that Nietzsche is a sort of academic-y writer per se. He's too passionate for that, but. For a while it was that for me, and then somehow I realised that I wasn't on the outside looking in, but I was on the inside looking out, and it had shaped my world. I knew that that's what I had to do, and I still feel the same way about it as I did when I guess conversion is the word.
And what was it about those thinkers that made you realise the importance of it? Was it like their passion or the more arguments?
More passion is an aspect of it, but it was also a way of seeing the world, and whereas before I'd have looked at the world and the question of God was not raised by the world that I looked at. After reading all that sort of stuff, I'd look at the sort of this beautiful scene, and I would go, "There's something about this which is asking me a question, which I'd never before." And funnily enough, it's the persistence of the question that in the end makes you see the world differently. It's not, very, very few people are argued into faith. And in fact, that's why, much to atheists' frustration, that's why people can't be argued out of it either. You don't get argued out of something you never were argued into, So it's more like falling in love, and you can fall out of love, so there is a process, but it isn't quite so susceptible to rational argument as many atheists presume. So they're quite frustrated. They think they've won the argument, but why has nothing happened with the person they think they won the argument with? And that's sort of because they're missing what it is that's charging the Christian vision. And
is that not also, you said that new atheism is not indifference, but aren't they also tackling with looking at the world and
Yes. No, I mean, new atheism is a very interesting phenomenon. I mean, I have all sorts of problems with it, but in one way, much more like Christianity than either side would feel comfortable with, actually. You know, that, as I said, indifference is the thing that is the real killer. But I mean, lots of new atheists passionately engage with the sort of beauty of the world, with the nature of justice, with the nature of what is right, with the nature of the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, and all that sort of stuff. To my taste, in argumentative terms, it's more flat-footed than it used to be. I mean, I think, you know, Nietzsche hated Christianity. He didn't just think it was wrong. He thought it was wicked, and that there was a sort of something that, and he also realised, Nietzsche did, and I think that new atheists don't get this. Nietzsche realised that the most important question is not the question about whether God exists. The most important question is sort of the question of personal salvation. It's like, how do I fit into this sort of like, and how is this broken person somehow, well, the language is saved, you know. Now the idea that religion begins with the question of salvation, something that Luther, for instance, would be terribly important to, and Nietzsche was a sort of Lutheran minister. So Nietzsche asked the question of salvation and answered it by, you're saved by being an atheist. Okay, that's sort of it. The new atheist's not interested in that question. They really only want to know whether there is a thing up there called God, or is there not a thing up there called God. And they think that's the nature of the argument. And I'm less interested in that question than people think I should be, actually. You know, that's not the thing that keeps me awake at night.
For more debates, talks and interviews, subscribe today to the Institute of Art and Ideas at IAI TV.